Almost 50 years after two women were killed in that city's notorious Easey Street murders, Victorian detectives have finally charged their alleged killer. Perry Kouroumblis arrived in Melbourne late last night after being extradited from Italy and today appeared in court for the first time, where he's facing murder and rape charges. Our reporter Suzanne was there. Suzanne, what's happened in court?
Good afternoon, Greg. Well, it's taken 47 years to reach this point, but the court appearance was over incredibly quickly, less than 5 minutes. Essentially, Mr. Kouroumblis was brought into the court and he was incredibly calm throughout. He didn't have to speak a word, but he was formally charged with 2 counts of murder for the deaths of Susan Bartlett and Suzanne Armstrong, who were killed in their Easey Street home in the inner city suburb of Collingwood in January 1977. And he was also charged with 1 count of rape on behalf of Ms. Armstrong. Now, this is a case that has gripped the city for almost 50 years, particularly because Ms. Armstrong's 16-month-old son was found crying in his cot days after the murders happened. There have been a lot of leads over the years, but this has been the first potential breakthrough, and today was a big step forward for the families as they sat in court and saw Mr. Kouroumblis formally charged.
And what were some of the latter stages among the deep background and build-up to this day, Suzanne, particularly, I suppose, the investigative side of the case?
Yeah, well, as I said, it started back in 1977, so 47 years ago, and it was a major investigation at the time. There were more than 100 suspects, but every time there was a lead, it ended up going nowhere. Of course, over the years, there have been technological breakthroughs, and Victoria Police have never given up. There was a particular sort of advancement when there was some DNA technology applied to the case, and that's when they wanted to talk to Mr. Kouroumblis, but he then moved to Greece in 2016. So they wanted to speak to him, but they couldn't because of the statute of limitations there, because you can only be charged with murder within 20 years, and that time had already passed. So Victoria Police couldn't reach him. Instead, they put out an Interpol red notice, which essentially made him a wanted man across the world. And the second he touched down in an Italian airport in September, those police pounced, arresting him there, and that set into mission an extradition process. Now, that takes a very long time. The treaty between Australia and Italy requires 45 days to get all of those papers in, from Victoria Police to the Attorney General. That's formally applied for, and then Mr. Kouroumblis did cooperate with authorities, and that made the process a lot smoother. He arrived last night around midnight, touching down, and was interviewed by police today before his appearance in court just now.
In view of all of that background, Suzanne, I imagine there's a lot going on among victims' families involved in all of this. Have they said anything?
Yes, well, outside court today, Suzanne Armstrong's sister Gail and Susan Bartlett's brother Martin spoke. They said that today feels incredibly surreal more than anything. They've waited so long, and it's unbelievable that this has happened. Obviously, they have suffered just terribly over the past 47 years. Martin described having to drive to the country and tell his mum that her daughter had been killed. He said initially she didn't even understand what he was saying to her because it was just too shocking, and that contributed to her blood pressure going up, and she passed away not too long after that. So they have just suffered and been desperate for answers. And this potential breakthrough has given them hope, but they say they never gave up hope because neither did Victoria Police. They had effusive thanks for the detectives who have always tried to follow any lead, and in this case it took them to Italy, and they have just said thank you so much to them as they now wait to see what happens next. It is important to say we understand at this point Mr. Kouroumblis is maintaining his innocence.